Today, we're diving into the story of the Syro-Malankara Catholic Church. And let me tell you, it's a fascinating one. It's a Christian community in India with roots that go back almost 2,000 years. We're talking about a story of ancient faith, some pretty intense colonial conflict, and ultimately a really remarkable journey back to unity. So here's the big question we're tackling. How on earth did a church that's nearly 2,000 years old manage to find its way back to Rome, all while holding on tight to its ancient traditions? It wasn't about giving up who they were, it was about keeping who they were. It's a pretty incredible puzzle, right? All right, so to really get a handle on the Syro-Malankara Church, you've got to go way, way back. I mean, back to the very beginning, to the ancient roots of Christianity in India itself. Okay, so get this. The story kicks off in 52 AD. That's the year tradition says St. Thomas, the Apostle Thomas, landed on the Malabar coast in what we now know as Kerala. So think about that for a second. This isn't some recent offshoot of a Western religion. We're talking about a community whose faith was planted way back in the 1st century. Just amazing. And for the next 1,500 years, that's a long time. These St. Thomas Christians were basically one big unified community. They had their own unique way of worship, the East Syriac liturgy, which connected them to some of the oldest churches in Mesopotamia. They even had their own code, you could say, called the Law of Thomas. It was one church, one faith, one set of traditions. A really proud apostolic heritage that, get this, even Pope Pius XII recognized almost 2,000 years later. But you know, that incredible stretch of unity, well, it was about to hit a major wall. And what comes next is a period of really deep division, fueled by colonialism and one very, very serious oath that would change everything. So, fast forward to the 16th century. This is when Portuguese missionaries show up in India. And they didn't just bring their faith, they brought a ton of pressure. They basically wanted the St. Thomas Christians to ditch their ancient Eastern traditions and start doing things the Latin, Western way. You can imagine this was a massive deal. It was a direct hit on their entire identity. This timeline here really lays it all out, doesn't it? I mean, look at that. Over 1,500 years of tradition. And then bam, the Portuguese arrive. And it all leads to this breaking point in 1653, an event that would echo through the centuries, the Coonan Cross Oath. So what was this oath? Well, in 1653, a whole bunch of these St. Thomas Christians got together and they made a promise, a really solemn oath. They swore they would never again submit to Portuguese authority. And you gotta understand, this was way more than just a political protest. It was a powerful declaration of who they were, a promise to protect their ancient heritage from being wiped out. And right after that oath, the community fractured. It split into two main groups. On one side, you had the Pajayakur, that means Old Allegiance. They eventually made peace with Rome and became what we know as the Syro-Malankara Church, and they got to keep their original East Syriac liturgy. But then there was the other group, the Patenkur, the New Allegiance. They dug in their heels. They resisted, reached out for help from the Syriac Orthodox Church of Antioch, and ended up adopting a different tradition, the West Syriac liturgy. And just like that, a whole new path was created. And for almost 300 years, that split stayed. The two groups went their separate ways. But then, in the 20th century, something started to change. A new possibility emerged, a path back to reunion. And it was all thanks to the vision of one incredible leader, Archbishop Mar Ivanios. Now, here's what's so wild about this. The push for reunion actually came from the Patenkur community, the very group that had split off in the first place. Their leader, Archbishop Mar Ivanios, was just this man of incredible faith and vision. And in 1926, he started talking with Rome, trying to figure out how to heal this wound that had been open for centuries. And guess what? It worked. Those talks really paid off. In 1930, the reunion movement officially became a success. Archbishop Mar Ivanios, along with his followers, entered into full communion with the Catholic Church. And that was the moment the Syro-Malankara Catholic Church was born. But it's so important to understand this wasn't a conversion, It wasn't one side surrendering to the other. This amazing quote from one of the church leaders really nails it. He called it an historical encounter between two apostolic churches. The whole point wasn't for one to swallow up the other. It was for both to be reconciled, healed, made whole. It's this beautiful idea of finding unity because of your diversity, not in spite of it. And the only reason this was even possible was because of the terms Ivanios laid down and that Rome agreed to. He insisted that they had to be allowed to keep their ancient traditions, they had to preserve their unique West Syriac liturgy, and they had to maintain their own church structure. So in the end, it was the best of both worlds. They became fully Catholic while staying 100% Malankara. Okay, so this really gets us to the core of what makes them so special. What does it even mean to be an Eastern Catholic Church? Well, let's take a closer look at that beautiful West Syriac liturgical tradition that they fought so hard to keep alive. The Syro-Malankara Church celebrates what's called the Antiochene Rite, or the West Syriac Rite. And look, this is way more than just a different style of prayer. It's a direct living link back to the traditions of Jerusalem and Antioch. I mean, the actual places where Christianity began, where the followers of Jesus were first called Christians. That's some serious history. And you can really see what makes their worship, the Holy Crubono, so unique. For starters, the whole focus is on the resurrection. So it feels more like a celebration of life, not just focusing on the crucifixion. The people usually stand instead of kneeling. And the whole thing is just filled with these long, beautiful chants, lots of incense, and these amazing oriental gestures and symbols that are woven right into the fabric of Indian culture. So, after all that history, what does this unique church mean for us today? Well, their incredible journey has put them in a really special spot. They've become a kind of bridge between different worlds. Think about it. They're holding onto their Orthodox liturgy with one hand, and they're in full communion with the Catholic Church with the other. It makes them this living, breathing bridge. They connect the ancient traditions of the East with the global Church of the West. And, just as importantly, they connect Catholics and Orthodox Christians. So if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this. The Syro-Malankara are a fully Catholic church that has held on to its Orthodox soul. And that proves something huge, that unity doesn't mean everyone has to be the same. They play this super important role in bringing different Christian groups together, and they're just an incredible example of a faith that is both global and, at the same time, completely and authentically Indian. And that really leaves us with something to think about, doesn't it? In a world that feels so divided sometimes, what can we all learn from this centuries-long story of division, identity, and finally, reunion? It's a story that shows us it's actually possible to heal old wounds, not by pretending our differences don't exist, but by embracing them to create something even richer and more whole.